Welcome to our weekly Christ in Our Neighborhood conversation where Joyce and I chat about Sunday's Gospel with Bishop John. Everything you need to do this with friends and family is on their Christ in Our Neighborhood section at the dphx.org website. Welcome back, Bishop.
It's always great to see the two of you. Wow, you guys have bright faces this week.
We're glad to see you, Bishop. And this week we're going to hear from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 12, verses 28 to 34. So, Bishop, would you like to start us off by reading the reflection?
Oh, sure. This is going to be a fun one. If you want to get to heaven, let me tell you what to do. Got to grease your feet in mutton stew, then slide right down out of the slippery sand and ease over to the promised land. These words from Woody Guthrie, while humorous, are an example of the thinking many people have about getting to heaven.
While many may wonder just how we get to heaven, as Christians we believe Christ is the way, few consider what they will do when they get there. If all we do is think that heaven is better than the alternative, hell, isn't very promising, then we're missing the mark.
Because the scribe answers Jesus correctly about the laws of love, Jesus says, "You are not far from the kingdom of God." Indeed, he understood the purpose of the laws of God because he understood the purpose of the kingdom of God. He knew that the laws and the kingdom were all about love. He understood that the kingdom was not somewhere off in the distance because the kingdom of love could be lived right now.
All right, so Bishop, what is this week's question?
Well, is heaven something you long for or something you live for? I like that song by Woody Guthrie. Actually, first time I ever heard it was when my sister came home from skipping rope at the local park, and I think a lot of people just try to find various alternatives to get to heaven. First of all, as Catholics, we believe that Christ is the only way. He's the way, the truth, and the life. So there really are no other gates, right? But more importantly, what does it mean to get to heaven? Is it something that we long for when we close our eyes to this life, or we just kind of wait for that time and then we're going to get right with God? Or is it even about getting right with God or getting right with love? God is love, of course. So if we're getting right with God, we're getting right with love. And if the love of God is eternal and omnipotent and omnipresent, the love of God is already here in our midst. Or as Jesus says, the kingdom of God is with you, is within you. So indeed, really, we're opening our eyes, not waiting to close our eyes and then open them later. We're opening them now to see the kingdom of love that is already here.
It's a great perspective, Bishop. And, the question, I think it's interesting because it asks if heaven is something we long for or live for. And for me, it's really both, but it hasn't always been that way because I think we don't talk a lot about heaven, what it is and what it means. And I love how you talk about it being a kingdom of love and how it begins now. But I think, the popular culture sometimes shows us a picture of, floating on clouds and maybe movies with angels and that sort of thing. But once I understood that heaven is going to be the satisfying of the deepest longings of our hearts, which, our deepest longing really is for love, right? That just changes everything because I want that. I want that in my life. And the Eucharist is God's love made real. So I know a lot of times people talk about the Mass being heaven on earth. I experienced what I think was maybe a foretaste of heaven when I was in Indianapolis at the Eucharistic Congress. You're in a stadium with 51,000 people, and there's just utter silence as everyone is adoring the Lord. And then the joy just in singing, singing with Matt Maher, singing contemporary hymns, singing the Salve Regina in Latin. It was all the incense, the procession, all of it, just looking around at this massive crowd of people all adoring the Lord. That was awesome. I got to believe that was a foretaste. So, love, joy, and celebration all wrapped into one. Yeah, I long for that. I'll take it.
Love it.
Yeah. Like you, Joyce, I wanted to answer both and.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll be like with family or friends or at Mass in particular, and I'll have just this very fleeting, overwhelming feeling of love. I mean, just like overwhelming. And I think that's what heaven must be like, except not fleeting, like all the time. And so because of that, I do long for that. I long for that place, that time where I'm so connected with God and my brothers and sisters, and that love is just flowing through all of us. And that's what so I do long for it. But then in the meantime, I try to live in that now by seeking forgiveness and reconciliation, by reaching out to people to let them know that I'm praying for them and I care about them and that I love them. So it's like I want to try to create the most loving place here and now in preparation for what I most long for.
Great insights. Well, now, Bishop, what is this week's task?
Well, I like this. Consider reading a book about a saint and meditating on his or her life. And then as you do that, consider how he or she was not far from the kingdom of God while here on earth. And then what page would you be able to take from that saint's life and apply it to your own here and now?
Oh, that's a great task.
It's a good challenge. Yes.
Well, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop.
For more information on Christ in Our Neighborhood and resources to start your own group, visit the Christ in Our Neighborhood section at the Diocese of Phoenix website.